So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you today's guest speaker. His name is Robert Cheeke. He's a New York Times bestselling author of The Plant-Based Athlete, and he's here with us today from Colorado. Robert grew up in Corvallis, my hometown, go Beavs, where he adopted a vegan lifestyle in 1995 at age 15, weighing just 120 pounds. Today, he is the author of the books Vegan Bodybuilding and Fitness, Shred It, Plant-Based Muscle, and the New York Times bestseller, The Plant-Based Athlete. He is often referred to as the godfather of vegan bodybuilding, growing the industry from infancy in 2002 to where it is today. As a two-time natural bodybuilding champion, Robert is considered one of Veg News magazine's most influential vegan athletes. He toured around the world sharing his story of transformation from a skinny farm kid to champion vegan bodybuilder. Robert is the founder and president of Vegan Bodybuilding and Fitness and maintains the popular website veganbodybuilding.com. He is a regular contributor to No Meat Athlete, Forks Over Knives, and Vegan Strong. He is a multi-sport athlete, an entrepreneur, and a great guy, and that's from me, and has followed a plant-based diet for more than 25 years. Robert lives in Colorado with his wife and two rescued chihuahuas. Please welcome Robert.
Thank you so much, Amy. I so appreciate you, and it is great to see you again, and great to see everybody. And can you hear me okay? Coming in here from snowy Fort Collins, Colorado. We got about a foot of snow today, and so I've been out there shoveling, another great form of exercise. So first and foremost, I want to thank you, Amy. I really appreciate this opportunity. I have been, as I've been describing, living my best life recently as I became a New York Times bestselling author. I've signed books in about 100 bookstores over the last 4 or 5 weeks or so, just returning back home 2 days ago and then hitting the road again in a few days. And Ramona, thanks for being here. And Josh, good to see you as well. And so I thought I'd just give a little bit of background of my history of how I got into this thing, and then open it up to questions if anyone has any. So as Amy said, I grew up on a farm in Corvallis, Oregon. My father is a professor emeritus at Oregon State University. He wrote about 15 textbooks in animal agriculture and became a world-renowned expert in teaching students and populations throughout the world, visiting 6 continents while I was growing up, teaching people how to raise animals for food. And I was in 4-H, I was raising animals. We had pretty much every farm animal you can think of, except for pigs on our farm. So we had cows and horses and ponies and sheep and goats and chickens and ducks and turkeys and all these animals. And I would show the animals at the county fair, Benton County Fair, and it was a great time. And I would raise primarily dairy calves who had first names and were friends of mine, just like a dog or a cat might be, kind of pets in our family. And I would raise rabbits, I would raise chickens. And then at the end of the fair, I would sell them in the auction and I would get some money for it. And as a 13-year-old, 14-year-old, that was kind of exciting. But when I realized, I kind of made the connection through the leadership of my older sister, where my animal friends were going and the fact that they were now going to be turned into someone's meal, I decided that's not something that I really wanted to support moving forward. And around that same time, my older sister organized this Animal Rights Week at our high school. Now, I didn't know anything about that. This was 1995, before the internet was available for public use. And I decided, you know what, my sister was vegan, whatever that meant. And so I decided I would go support my sister putting on this Animal Rights Week at our school. So I attended during off periods and during lunch periods and that kind of thing, and listened to speakers, watched videos of factory farming and animal testing, read literature, and most importantly, had conversations with people. And I decided on that day, December 8th, 1995, that I would go ahead and become vegan and see how long I would stick with it. I had no idea, no aspirations that it would be necessarily a super long-term thing. After all, I was 15 years old. And as you know, teenagers tend to change our minds every week, as it seems. But I went ahead and stuck with it. And I was a 5-sport athlete in high school. And I just begged this question: can I get bigger and stronger? I grew up in the 80s. I looked up to He-Man and Captain Planet and these strong, muscular figures, even if they were fictional. who were doing these good deeds in the world. And that's what I wanted to do. In fact, I wanted to be a professional wrestler. And I wondered, can I do this without eating animal protein? I mean, there's no internet, there's not documentaries about this, very few books. Is this possible? But as a 5-sport athlete, I went ahead and embraced it. I heard someone talking about being a wrestler. I was a wrestler. I was a soccer player, basketball player, was in track and field, cross country, all at Corvallis High School, and had some great coaches and leadership there as well. And I stuck with it. And I ended up being good enough, I guess, to run cross country at Oregon State University. Back then, it was just a club, not a team, but we still competed with the powerhouse of University of Oregon and all these other schools, dozens of schools from around the country. But then I checked in right here, like what do I really want to do? I'm a pretty good long distance runner, but what do I really want to do? And that was to get bigger and stronger, to be something that I'd never been before, and not to get knocked around on the soccer field and pushed around on the basketball court and getting pinned in wrestling all the time. And I also wanted to show that I had this compassion for farm animals. I was surrounded by them growing up. And I thought that if I could do this, if I could build muscle without eating animals, maybe that would inspire others to do the same. And so that's what I did. And sure enough, I discovered weightlifting, and I got bigger and I got stronger. And I went from that 120-pound non-vegan 5-sport athlete as a sophomore at Corvallis High School to a 220-pound champion vegan bodybuilder. And I started speaking about the story of transformation from skinny farm kid to champion vegan bodybuilder. And all of a sudden, I got these opportunities to be on magazine covers and speak around the world in Asia and Australia and Europe and the Caribbean and all throughout Canada and the US and elsewhere. And then I followed another strong passion of mine. I decided in Mrs. Young's 3rd grade class at 1988 at Lincoln Elementary School in Corvallis that I would be a writer someday. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to write. And I'd had this bodybuilding career where I'd become a champion bodybuilder and as a vegan, not eating any animal protein, no meat, dairy, eggs, and was still able to build muscle and achieve success in bodybuilding. And so I started to write about it. I self-published some books because I was new to it and kind of learning my way. And after self-publishing 4 books, I finally landed a big publishing deal with HarperCollins, and I released this book, The PlantBased Athlete, which became an instant New York Times bestseller, a #1 international bestseller, and translated into 6 languages so far outside of English, and that's Chinese, Korean, Italian, German, Spanish, and Polish, and hopefully many more to come. And it's been a lifelong journey to get here. And that's why it's with enthusiasm that, as I mentioned a moment ago, I've been to 100 bookstores just in the last few weeks, showing up, meeting the staff, signing books, doing the whole photos and social media thing, and getting to know people who work in the bookstores year round, so they know a little bit about my author journey and what I really wanted to accomplish with this book. And that's precisely what I wanted to accomplish, was to tell the compelling stories of the world's greatest plant-based athletes. Many of you may not know that Carl Lewis, the Olympian, one of the greatest track and field runners in the history of the world, who won 10 Olympic medals as a sprinter for Team USA, including 9 Olympic gold medals, was a plant-based guy, still is, a vegan guy. In fact, he's gone on record saying that his best competition years are right after he switched to a plant-based diet. And I've interviewed and talked with NBA basketball stars, Olympic athletes, world champions, Guinness World Record holders, professional athletes in all sports disciplines, men and women alike, from endurance sports like ultra marathons and running and cycling to strength sports, from NFL football players to world champion boxers. I think I interviewed like 3 different world champion boxers and wrestlers, including pro wrestlers, that avenue that I always wanted but didn't quite reach, bodybuilders, international record holders in powerlifting, mixed martial arts champions, including James Wilkes, who filmed The Game Changers, which was a fantastic film, one of the most watched documentaries in history that came out a couple years ago about plant-based athletes. And it's been a tremendous honor to bring this book to life and share it with so many readers around the globe in just a short amount of time. It came out in June 15th of last year. So I'd like to think that this now 27-year vegan athlete journey has been rewarding and fruitful, and perhaps did fulfill some of those initial goals and dreams that I had, that if I could do this, maybe it would inspire others to do the same. And so that's where I'm at and where it's come to. And just a few principles really quickly for those wondering, like maybe a plant-based diet is kind of new or unfamiliar with it, and how does that work, especially for athletes? And I'll tell you that, obviously I've been doing it for more than a quarter of a century, but it was more important for me to talk to other people who've been doing it for a long time or a short time. I interviewed some people who have been vegan since birth and became Olympic champions, Olympic medalists, world champions, professional bodybuilders, all from just no animal products ever in their life. They were just born and raised that way. And then I also talked to others, including Sharon Feichman, who competed in Tokyo for Team Canada in women's tennis in the Olympics just months ago. And she's newer to the lifestyle. And much like Venus Williams, her career was over. Maybe some of you remember 2012 when Venus Williams had to stop playing tennis. She had an autoimmune disease that caused so much pain in her joints she couldn't play tennis anymore. And she adopted a plant-based diet. And after a number of months, she was able to come back and not only return to tennis, but she won an Olympic gold medal and Wimbledon that year, along with her sister Serena. And there are just a couple of recent examples. Chris Paul is another fun one for me because I'm a big basketball fan. I just watched him play last night. I had the opportunity to meet him a couple years ago, and he took his team to the NBA Finals last year and is having a tremendous resurgence of his career. And so what happened was, after I talked to, for this particular book, about 60 world-class plant-based athletes, again, some of the biggest names, in the sports world who are doing this, what I found over and over is that athletes reported a decrease in inflammation and a accelerated recovery process. And so they improved their recovery, they reduced their inflammation, their soreness, their just muscle inflammation, and were able to recover, repair, and grow and repeat their activities faster, more efficiently. And they also, almost everyone also reported an increase in energy. Obviously, eat a high carbohydrate, high energy diet, especially foods that are easy to digest, that don't suck a lot of energy from you or take a lot of energy to digest. It tends to be a high net gain return on investment energy-wise. And of course, many people reported improved biomarkers because for health biomarkers, because there's no dietary cholesterol in plant-based foods. The Achilles heel of the American diet, dietary cholesterol, which is problematic for so many different health outcomes. You just don't find it in a plant-based diet. It's not there. And same with fiber, which 97% of Americans don't consume enough of, is only found in plants. And so that was another benefit. And the idea or the role of antioxidants, where there's 64 times more antioxidants in plants than there are in animals. And that 164th that's found in animal muscle tissue comes from the plants that they ate. And so you get this high nutrient return on investment, vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, nitric oxide, vasodilator, better blood flow, decreased risk of endothelial cell and artery damage from dietary cholesterol and high saturated fat foods. And so a plant-based diet has been shown to be very, very effective for not only health, but for athletes as well. And one of the things that's really fun about this particular book is that it was all evidence-based. The individual who wrote the foreword for the book is a mega number one New York Times bestselling author, Dr. Michael Greger, from the books How Not to Die and How Not to Diet. And his whole thesis is evidence-based nutrition. And many of the dietitians, doctors, experts from Cornell University, the Cleveland Clinic, and others who endorse the book are all in that same camp of evidence-based nutrition. And so that's what we focused on with this, rather than just making claims. We use the science, we use the evidence-based nutrition, and then we tell the stories of the athletes who experience what could be expected to be experienced based on what the science says. And so it has been a whole lot of fun. And I've done about 100 podcasts, interviews kind of like this. And we did a bunch of radio interviews and some TV stuff and in person, and just so fortunate that this has really resonated with people. And we had the opportunity to make the New York Times bestseller list, which was a lifelong goal that was set in motion decades ago. So that's kind of my story, my background with this project. And just lastly, like for those who are interested, or someone, or maybe you're one of your relatives or a friend or a colleague, coworker, a child, a friend, someone is a plant-based athlete, or does identify as vegan or vegetarian or plant-based, or working to eat lower on the food chain, or whatever the case is. In this book, what you will find is evidence-based plant-based nutrition. You'll find meal plans. You'll find recipes from the athletes themselves, which is kind of exciting. And then a day in the life routine of about 25 of the world-class plant-based athletes we talk to. So you can see exactly what they eat for breakfast, what they do for their workouts, what they have for lunch, what kind of sports supplements, if any, do they use, and what their routine is like to be one of the best athletes in the world in professional or Olympic sports. And that was just a joy to conduct all those interviews and put that all together. So as someone who's been doing this for more than 25 years, if anyone has any questions about what that's like, what foods are like, meals are like, what the book writing process was like, or getting published by a major publisher was like, or anything like that, I'd be happy to address any of those things now.
Thank you, Robert. Why don't we start with any questions while we have the microphone on the Zoom situation here? And I'll start just because I'm curious. Can you talk about any of the misconceptions, or the popular misconceptions you hear about veganism as a lifestyle?
Oh yeah, sure. So thanks, Amy. One of the big ones is, you can't get complete protein. I mean, that's fundamentally not true, just scientifically not true. Basically, there was a book quite popular in the 1970s that had this idea that plant protein was incomplete. You have to combine things like rice and beans to get complete protein. That's just not how it works. That's not how our body utilizes amino acids. We store them, we pool them, we pull from them as we need them. As we consume all types of different foods, they work harmoniously together to all the different essential amino acids in higher or lower amounts from different foods come together and make the appropriate combinations that we need for muscle repair, for growth, for development, for prevention of injuries, all the things that amino acids and proteins do. Repair muscle tissue and all of that. So that was a big one. I mean, Diet for a Small Planet back in the 70s gave a lot of people this idea that it was not possible. Obviously, I'm just one of many people. I put on 100 pounds as a plant-based athlete and became a champion bodybuilder. And I'm just one individual example of many, many, many thousands, or tens of thousands, or hundreds of thousands out there, as we've seen a community of vegans being in around 26 million or something like that, perhaps worldwide. But as far as athletes, there's probably into the millions now as well. Other misconceptions are that that tofu or something like that is or soy-based foods are unhealthy, when in fact they're foods that have been consumed for thousands of years in Asian countries, and they actually prevent against many of our common cancers. And people are worried about some estrogen-like effect without realizing that many people, especially in America, drink, bovine fluid. They drink, they still consume, they still breastfeed as adults. Very foreign concept. No other species does that. They don't breastfeed from other species, and they certainly don't do it as adults. But we do both of those things. And so you're taking in just direct, estrogen from the udder of a cow or whatever animal, and we eat chicken breasts, and we eat all these things. We're worried about estrogen from a bean. and that's just not, again, these are phytoestrogens. They actually interact completely differently, and they don't have that estrogen like effect that especially a lot of men are intimidated by eating things like tofu and soy. And just maybe another common misconception is that maybe, I don't know, certain vegan foods are either expensive or they're heavily processed, like a plant-based burger or something like that. But coming from a farming background and knowing a bit about that industry, I can tell you there's a lot that goes into producing animal protein. It could include all kinds of supplementation, antibiotics, hormones, all types of things that go into the raising and harvesting and growing and slaughter of an animal. Plus, most people consume animals with lots of other things, right? With breads around it in a burger or a sandwich, heavily processed food, with oils, which are 4,000 calories per pound, to season and to grill or to fry and all this stuff, super high calories. That's, leads to a lot of the obesity epidemic, is the processed animal foods we have because of the things like oils that they're fried in, that they're included in. They may be battered with butter or dairy or eggs or something, very calorie dense foods that may be in the thousands of calories per pound, whereas plant-based foods are in the hundreds of calories per pound. And so worrying about some of the ingredients that might be in a plant-based burger or something, when we consume all kinds of food additives and dyes and oils and seasonings and all these artificial ingredients in the end result of a traditional burger or pizza, that doesn't always make a lot of scientific or nutritional sense. And so those are some of the things. And then, of course, the fact that you can't get bigger and stronger without eating animal protein. Amino acids are amino acids. Many studies out there, including some recent ones, 2021 studies, particularly with athletes, showing that body doesn't always know the difference between whether it's a whey protein or pea protein or something in its amino acid ability to repair, recover, and build muscle tissue in order to get bigger and stronger. And that's scientific studies done on male and female athletes alike. So those are a few of them. And then I guess one last one, because I wrote a 35-page paper on it a while back with a bunch of references and citations, is that a plant-based diet might be expensive, which is in some cases is true. If you'll get a plant-based burger, and I've been to all these big cities recently and all these vegan restaurants everywhere in San Diego, Los Angeles, Phoenix, Vegas. You might pay much more for a plant-based burger than a government subsidized animal-based burger, which is how they're so cheap in the first place, through tremendous government subsidies by the billions and billions of dollars, making what would normally be a $10 or $20 burger based on the resources involved in making one down to $1 or something like that. And the reality is, when I wrote this large paper, the most affordable foods on the planet, period, end of story, are lentils and dried beans and rice and oats. These are plant-based foods. And these happen to be zero cholesterol foods, high fiber foods, high vitamin, mineral, antioxidant content foods, the healthiest foods we can possibly eat. You look at the Blue Zones diet, the Blue Zones, the longest lived populations in the world are these Blue Zones. There's, I think, 7 or 8 of them throughout the world, in Italy, Costa Rica, Japan, United States. They're in these different pockets, Greece, I believe. And the one common food theme throughout all of those is beans. Beans seems to be the number one longevity food in the world. And so those are a few of the misconceptions.
Thank you, Robert. Are there any other questions on the Zoom before we turn it over? Oh, it looks like Greg has a question. Greg?
Hi. Well, I was just wondering if, is it too late for us old folks to, to make the kind of changes you're talking about?
No, that is a fantastic question. And it's never too late, because what happens, and I've seen this, I've worked with the Esselstyn family. You may know Dr. Cardwell Esselstyn, who was one of the key members at the Cleveland Clinic for decades. He wrote the groundbreaking book, Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease. He was overseeing Bill Clinton's, heart attack issues and all that kind of stuff. New York Times bestseller, a really great guy. Also an Olympic gold medalist from the 1956 rowing team. His son's a tremendous athlete and author himself. they show that you can drop cholesterol points significantly, absolutely significantly, in a very fast time, like in a matter of weeks. You can halt a lot of the progression of our common degenerative diseases in a matter of weeks or months. I mean, this is a plant-based diet that is well known for combating type 2 diabetes, obesity, hypertension, even various forms of cancer. You may know that the World Health Organization has classified processed meats, red meats, and other meats as either class 1 or class 2A carcinogens, as carcinogenic as cigarette smoking. This has been known for many years, many books about it, many documentaries about it. And I mean, I just had dinner with someone the other day while I was on tour, someone I've known for years, and her mother adopted a plant-based diet at age 80, and she's 89 now and has experienced all kinds of benefits. And at one time I was on this, and this is on the kind of more extreme end. I was on this vegan cruise that I was a speaker on for 10 consecutive years before the pandemic brought it to a halt. And so usually the biggest names in the plant-based doctor, physician, dietitian, expert world are there, big name doctors and all of that. And there was a woman on there I met sitting at a table. She was 91 years old. And she said she came on the cruise to meet her hero, Dr. Esselstyn, who was probably maybe 82 at the time, because she had changed her life at age 91, and she was inspired by that. So I meet people all the time who adopt a plant-based diet in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and beyond. And that's the thing with nutrition and nutritional science, is that it's never too late to make changes that have immediate implications. I mean, if you stop consuming copious amounts of dietary cholesterol, you stop that plaque buildup on endothelial cells and artery walls. And also by eating other certain types of food, you can help try to erode some of that dietary cholesterol that lines artery walls, which basically means like, blood flow, instead of being like this, gets scrunched down, and that leads to cardiac issues and all kinds of other health implications of having restricted blood flow. So no, it's never too late. Just like exercising, I tell people it's never too late to start exercising, because why would you delay something that contributes positively to your net health outcome? And every day that we delay that outcome. And so
Greg,
the best time to start is now.
Greg, sounds like you need his book.
Yeah.
Robert, I want to get through a couple more questions real quick,
Sure.
if I may. Sorry to derail you a little bit. There is a question.
No, it's all right. I've got
Josh had a question. I'll let him go, and then I have a couple questions from the chat box.
Sure.
Hey, thanks for speaking.
Sure thing.
So I used to be more of a vegan athlete than I am now. And I know it's possible and stuff like that. But back then I was doing rigorous exercise 4 hours a day during school and stuff like that. But now my lifestyle doesn't quite accommodate for 4 hours a day of rigorous bodybuilding exercise. So do you have any recommendations for something in more of like or is it even possible in like a 20-minute a day, like super high focused? And then also part 2, do you have any recent discoveries or information about the concepts of metabolic window and how soon or when you should be eating what after certain workouts and what those benefits would be?
Yeah. Thanks, Josh. And I'll try to be brief so we can get to a few more questions. I know I can be enthusiastically long-winded at times. Amy's laughing. She knows that. That's a great question. And you can do a lot in a short amount of time, Josh. You really can. So even in the best shape of my life, when I, real big muscles and the best shape of my life, even in my 40s, I'm almost 42. I train for about an hour a day, 3 or 4 days a week. The idea is that it's focused, it's deliberate. There's a great mind-muscle connection. The thing is, and I'm mostly pointing at my former self here, is that in my observation, so many people are so obsessed with playing on their phone, at the gym, they're not even exercising. There's social media, the internet, the texting the temptation's too much. And we're not actually focused on our actual exercises. But if you can focus on an exercise or on a workout, and sometimes that maybe that means focusing on one single muscle group a day, training chest for 30 minutes, the next day training back for 30 minutes, the next day training legs for 30 minutes, shoulders, arms, abs, whatever, you can accomplish a lot in a short amount of time. As a reminder to everybody, we do have 1,440 minutes every day to just determine what our priorities are. And so obviously things get busy, life gets busy, work, relationships, family, children, all these things, but there's ways to fit exercise in. As I even started this call by saying, looking outside with a foot of snow, shoveling snow is a form of exercise, right? Walking my dogs is a form of exercise. You want a little more strenuous. I was working out with dumbbells for over an hour watching the Phoenix Suns game last night. So I work out while I'm watching the game at home. So absolutely. And to answer another question, that's a great question you had about the metabolic window. There's been this long standing idea that we have what we call this nutritional window of opportunity, where after you finish a workout, what do you do when you work out? You damage muscle tissue, you create micro tears in muscle fibers, you tear muscle, you lose electrolytes, you lose water, through sweat, all this kind of stuff. You want to replenish immediately, right? You want to just repair that muscle tissue right away. Well, as it turns out, you don't have to have this immediate 30-minute window to replenish like right away. Like you need these amino acids flooding your system. It's a good idea to start getting some calories and amino acids and nutrition back in, especially some hydration. But it's not a requirement that you get it in that first hour. I don't eat protein like crazy after workout. I'll have some citrus fruit, banana, water, coconut water, whatever, and then eventually get to like a burrito bowl, a bigger meal. So no, don't worry about that nutritional window of opportunity as much. It's more about total calories consumed daily over a period of time.
Thank you, Robert.
Awesome. Thank you.
You bet.
So last question. So if your first goal was to be a bodybuilder and then to become an author, what's next for you?
To become a better author, to come back on the New York Times list, to tour to more places, to have a bigger impact, to keep writing. I feel like my writing career just started. I self-published books for 4 years. I sold 50, 60,000 copies. That was really nice. That landed me this big deal. But it's only my first major book. I got a lot left in me. So I'm working on those as we speak. And I'm also booking speaking gigs around the country again. And it's as things open up, at least in certain places, it's just nice to get back out there in safe, controlled environments where it's really fun to be out there in person again. And this tour of 100 bookstores in the last 4 weeks, with my goal of having more personal relationships with bookstores than any author in America, that is something that's really fulfilling right now. And that's what I'm doing. I'm documenting all of it. And soon I'll have hundreds of bookstores that I have some sort of relationship with who will continue to support this work that I've been doing for years to come.
Well, Robert, it was a distinct pleasure to have you and to see you again personally, but also thank you so much for your time today. I don't know, Bryce, do you want to pick it back up again and do our closeout? And best of luck to you in your goals, Robert. I know you have many.
Well, thank you. Thanks, Amy. You're the one that invited me here, and I appreciate Ramona jumping in as well. I've spoken at Pacific University multiple times over the years. And for everybody else who's here, this is fun for me. I mean, it's a dream come true to talk about something I've worked my entire life for. And I appreciate everything that everyone else is doing in the Rotary Club and as entrepreneurs and in business and in your communities as well. And I've got a big warm place in my heart for Oregon. I love it. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.